Hello and welcome to another episode of our Women in STEM series. My name is Kaylee Peel and I'm the Director of Development for the Linda Hall Library. And today our guest is Nalima Parasker from Snap IT Solutions. Nalima, welcome. Thanks for
Thank,
being here.
thank you very much, Keely.
So let's talk about your journey into the STEM ecosystem, specifically with tech. Can you talk a little bit about, what was your inspiration on this journey and what landed you to found Snap IT Solutions?
That's a
It's a big
very
question, yeah.
a big question, a
Starting out
lot of
strong.
things to it, but I'll try to keep it as
That's
short as
fine.
possible.
Sure.
Um, I didn't think I was being like wanted to get to be an engineer. I just wanted to spend time with my dad, and I was quite inspired as a kid to do what he's doing. Usually, it's taking out something apart and putting it back again
Mhm.
over the weekend. So always quite interested in engineering
Mhm.
aspects of things. Later on, as I grew up, I figured out that it's more like problem solving.
Mhm.
If there is a problem, how do I fix it?
Mhm.
That's how I started my journey. And early on, that was my experience, like with my dad. And then when it was time to choose a field, I wanted to be who he is,
Okay.
an engineer.
Sure.
And I picked the mechanical engineer route, and I did my 4 years in bachelor's
Mhm.
as a mechanical engineer. And during that time, early 2000s, the computer sciences was growing, and
Right.
everything had technology by then. And I was intrigued, and I wanted to design cars.
Wow. That's amazing.
Because I felt like cars were not designed for women.
Right.
And I was like, okay, what do I do to design a car in the
Mhm.
automotive industry? That's how I started, um, and wanted to do masters.
Okay.
And kind of wanted to get away from my, then childhood home was in India.
Mhm.
Wanted to get away, and I always felt very protected and in a, golden cage kind of thing.
Mhm.
So independence was a big thing for me, and I wanted to see how I can figure things out being independent. So I promised my parents I'll come back after
Sure.
masters and take over my dad's company.
Okay.
And then, you know, as a couple years passed, I completed my masters, and I met my husband here, and
Mhm.
things changed.
Yeah.
I started as a software engineer, went for close to 15 years, um, developer, designer, architect on the software side, and then finally got into the management side. And when I exited the corporate world, I had global IBMers reporting to me on mission critical and business critical applications.
Mhm.
So that's when I exited in the corporate world and started Snap IT.
Okay.
Why I started Snap IT? That's an interesting question. Um, I kind of wanted to start a business because that probably is something that was already there in me,
Mhm.
but also a lot of nudge from my husband saying, hey, you can do great in business, kind of thing. But I didn't want to start one without finding my purpose. And I think, and I know for sure, I found that purpose when I started volunteering and in STEM activities
Mhm.
as a mentor and a speaker. Um, I then realized I was in a Johnson County bubble
Okay.
for 15 years.
Mhm.
Um, all through these 15 years, I was in Overland Park, Johnson County, had kids.
Yeah.
So I was busy in that my world. And when I started volunteering and coming out of that bubble, that's when I realized that there is so much world out here in the United States that could compete with developing countries. And they
Mhm.
don't have the resources probably even the developing countries have.
Right.
And that made me kind of got surprised, but I didn't right away start Snap IT based on that. I started involving myself in digital inclusion
Mhm.
organizations. But I remember the day I was driving back home when I heard in the group that we've been working on digital inclusion for 20 years, at least 2 decades, and the problem is getting bigger.
Mm.
And I come from a private industry. I can't invest more if there is no progress.
Sure.
So I said to myself, I think I can find a solution. So that's how I started Snap IT with a model called Sprint model, where we train using our own coding courses. We train the students who have no background or very less background in tech. Bring them, some of them, we bring them into mentorship and put them in the second division called SALTS while they're learning less critical projects to work on and implement the trained skills. And then once they are ready, we would put them on client projects and have them get into pods, completely develop them with senior engineers. So by doing this, at least I wanted to show the world that it's possible. Given the resources, this talent can become equal to an engineer within 1 to 2 years.
Right.
And they could earn while they're learning. And that's how my journey started with Snap IT.
That's amazing. There's so many things that I want to talk about there. I guess I'll start with the latter part of what you said. The intentional investment that has to happen with young people, but also with neighborhoods and communities that don't have the natural access and resources to things. I think that's super powerful. And I think that a lot of individuals and organizations are starting to have that conversation more, at least in the Kansas City region now. But it sounds like, yes, you were very much a pioneer in that sense, which thank you for that, because I think it's important to diversify our talent pool, and you have to bring everyone into that for it to make sense. So I totally resonate with that. So what have been the outcomes after you've been, you're building Snap IT, you've built that pipeline for young people? What can you share when it comes to kind of the impact that has and that ripple effect in the community?
I want to correct when you said young people.
Sure. Yes, please do. Yes.
Okay. So the trainings that we've developed is for people who have no experience or is not a computer sciences, experienced person in the industry.
And that's regardless of age and place.
Regardless
yes,
of age.
You're right.
It's actually for people, our clientele is on the training side is anywhere from 25 to even 50 years old.
Wow.
You won't, those later on age, like the older age group demographics is where they've been in the tech industry, but on an older platform, an older technology. They come take our trainings and get to the next, newer and get there. But that 25 and above is where we see a lot more students coming in.
Okay.
Because I feel like at this stage, there are so many more resources in the market that bring awareness, bring the early education needed. Our trainings are meant for job. They're ready for the first day of job.
Got it.
So the difference is it's not exactly young people.
Sure.
It was targeted for people who are ready to take their career to the next level. Could be second career as well.
Right.
But we always, I volunteer my time for any schools or universities that needed, any kind of education awareness. I think there are a lot of resources out there which I'm happy about for schools.
Yeah.
Now, finally, legislation is looking at making mandatory, technology or computer sciences as mandatory, which, I think it's going to be good for the kids in future. Not every kid needs to be a computer sciences major. That is absolutely the truth. But everybody needs to understand technology.
Sure.
It's a tool for tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. When it comes to the first part of what you said, you have a very broad range of experiences that led you to this point, and I think that's really important to talk about because particularly women and people of color, we have to add a lot of different experiences to forge ahead. And I think the more diverse your toolkit and your skill set is, the more applicable you can be in different situations. So when you entered different spaces, when it was engineering, whenever you started to volunteer in different places in the community, how were you received as a woman and as a woman of color? And how did you navigate that in different aspects of your career?
That's a great question. I call something called, I don't want to put it in a negative sense, but I call something vanity metrics. there is a lot of, like, when I came out into the community and said, I want to do this work, and I may have whispered to you, it doesn't matter. You're going to go and speak to the world
Sure.
that she wants to do this.
Sure.
That was my response, that from the community.
Mhm.
When I said I want to do this, even if I whispered to somebody, they went and talked to 100 people out there.
Okay.
So it resonated,
Mhm.
which is great. But the reason I make it as a vanity metrics is I started getting invitations to do this more and more and more and more. And I started getting peeled off from what I'm actually wanting to do,
Right.
which at that stage I was not big enough to have how many I have today. And that took away from the actual work that I needed to do.
Mhm.
So we need to balance that in our community. I have to say that Kansas City has been an amazing community to support and, for the right cause.
Sure.
I just want to make sure we want to also voice the actions and the results that is coming out of that intention. And if there is no action results, we need to question. We need to look at metrics. We need to look at data. So that's, let's move the vanity metrics, which is great to start with, but limit that to actual metrics
Yeah.
with the results. And
That makes total sense. Some of the initiatives that we're doing at the library kind of speaks to that.
Good.
It's one thing to have the conversations, but we need to have action to follow it, or
Yeah.
we're not getting any work done. So I completely agree with what you're saying. When it comes to the work that Snap IT is doing in the community, what are you excited about, and what are your goals for the next couple of years with this?
I'll say in the innovation space, if you did say that you were a pioneer in this, right? If you're a pioneer and you're way too early, it doesn't matter what your idea is. It could be bright there, but it'll take
Sure.
the light off.
Mhm.
I think I got it just in time, or situations changed in such a way that my initiatives kind of have now a big, backing.
Yeah.
Whether it is unfortunately because of COVID and the wars, it's really unfortunate. What I thought would happen in the next 10 to 15 years became 5 years,
Wow.
right? We would have not seen the amount of workforce deficiencies in the market without what we went through past years. And what that did is the industry is truly looking at alternative workforce,
Yeah.
right? I started this saying that they're right under my nose. This talent, the brilliant kids or adults or young adults who think that they can get into tech because it's a rocket science. No, it's not.
Right.
So how do you open it up and show them the way, right? But if that industry didn't change to force us to get to that, I would still be doing that
Right.
and not found success. So I'm glad and happy that systems now changed where truly it's the time to close the divide.
Right.
And if we don't do this and we let it next 10 years pass by, AI will take over.
Exactly. Exactly.
And let's teach our kids not AI, but data science, data driven, that's coming up. And I will not agree that AI will take away our jobs, but I will say that AI will take away some of our jobs. That means that there are new jobs being created and new and exciting things that our talent to get focus on.
Yeah.
So that's where, I think that initiative, I was a little early, but not too early, and definitely not late.
Yeah, it definitely sounds serendipitous, and I'm glad that it worked out because it's needed in our community. So when it comes to that gap that you're talking about, closing the gap, what are easy ways, not easy, but easier ways that other industries in the STEM ecosystem, what can they adopt to help you and help others close that gap? What should we be thinking about and looking at in our region?
So there is awareness in the industry that we need talent, right? The talent is getting expensive day by day. There is awareness. But our practices on the HR side are still, every job that our HR opens in big corporates, they still ask for experience. They still expect a certain level of, skills, that they walk in and that start working at that level and contributing to the company. I agree. There's some of the jobs you can replace with junior talent.
Sure.
I think right now what's missing is the awareness that we need to do something different and buckling ourselves to say, all right, what's the difference? What is different? And how do we adopt that? I think big corporates can change. It's a big ship. It takes time to change. And that's where they need small businesses like either Snap IT or other organizations that are helping drive this towards them and partner with whoever makes sense for the organizations, right? That way, they don't have to create what we are already doing, but help and test and see what works out for you. And once it works out, then you can move your big ship towards
Right.
the direction. So that is where I think I'm hoping that the industry can help in rethink their processes, rethink their standard operating procedures, and frankly challenge their management. Because I know it doesn't matter what level of CEOs or C-level executives you are, when you're talking to IT, they know that they can be the boss of tech.
Right.
And they're taking advantage of that, truly speaking. Instead, how do you sit down with your technology, learn what they're doing, and say that how can we not, find better ways to do this?
Yeah.
For example, you may not, this is not a general talk, but there is something called tech debt in every corporate. It keeps building up.
Okay.
Things that they need to do,
Sure.
but they don't find it as a primary thing to do because revenue is not generated out of it, but they have to do it. The tech debt keeps increasing,
Yeah.
every day you don't address it. Those are the areas that you can start having this kind of talent addressing and working on.
Sure.
And then once they do a good job, it's cheaper, affordable, and more, sustainable. Once they're doing a good job there, then you can take that talent and put it on the primary areas. So those are the ways that they can figure things out.
Yeah, more of a long-term investment, right? Which we are all starting to get more in that mindset. But
Yeah.
it's more of a marathon, not a sprint, for sure.
Exactly.
And I think, what I'm hearing is, we need to be more innovative. We need to be more collaborative and kind of coming to the table and sharing resources and experiences. I'm totally on board with that. So I hope that we embark on that journey a little bit more. So I guess my last question, if all of those things work out, if we're able to be more innovative and collaborative and strategic in the way that we're starting to implement and support the workforce, what do you think the future of STEM and STEAM looks like for the region in Kansas City, particularly for women and for people of color?
Exceptionally bright.
Good.
Exceptionally bright. And Kansas City has always led in, the percentage. We were at least top 10% in women in tech in Kansas City. That's always there. But how much did they make,
Right.
right?
Great question.
That is the question that I want to challenge, right? There are a number of people. We have a very supporting community that makes women have families, not just women having families,
Sure.
but wanting to grow beyond, not thinking that I have a family now, I have to stay
Right,
home.
more balance.
Right? We are balanced. We are able to create that environment here in Kansas City. So if anybody East Coast or West Coast is hearing this, come to Kansas City. Seriously, it's the best place to raise a family and still kick ass in your career.
Yeah.
Right? So that's there. I just want to challenge and stand up for how much you want to make and learn those skills and get back in there and see how you can grow that. Kansas City, especially both sides, but recently on the Kansas side, Governor Kelly and Lieutenant Governor Toland did a great job in bringing major projects to Kansas. There's a lot of, good synergies happening, right? There's emphasis on higher tech jobs right now. We want more engineers. As you probably already know, that I'm also a regent for state of Kansas.
Yes.
We are looking at, bringing in more students, whether in Kansas or from outside, and growing, more developing more engineers. There is so much future here, and not just in the career side, but also you can have pleasure and,
Yeah.
achieve your goals other than just career goals.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of ambition we're going to be working toward too. So that makes me
Yes.
happy. Well, thank you so much for your insights. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.